We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. A playground for some. For others, it's where they make their living. But the sea's unpredictable. It can change in an instant.
The sea takes no prisoners. You always have to be prepared for the worst.
The sea is a beast. If you weren't anxious about it, you're not doing the right job.
The water was freezing.
I was thinking I was going to die.
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of over 5,000 ordinary people, ready to leave their jobs, their families, and race to our rescue.
Steady, steady. Go for it.
When the pagers go off, your heart stops. Is this a life and death situation?
In the water.
You're okay, pal.
Let go of the sail, mate. Let go of the sail.
Even that 1 second could make a huge difference to someone at home. 1 minute they've got a son or a daughter, the next minute they may not.
There we go. Emily, high five. Well done. Nice one.
I didn't think we'd get them back. I was just thinking, just please.
Are you the parents?
The lifeboat crew, without them, there's no doubt about it, we'd have lost our girls.
Equipped with their own cameras,
Am I switched on?
It's on.
the crews give us a unique insight into every call-out as only they see it.
Good stuff, that's it.
Speeding into the roughest storms, searching for people who may only have moments to live.
Gotcha.
For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
If something goes wrong, you could be the only person between them and death.
The most southerly lifeboat stations in the RNLI network are found on Jersey, largest of the Channel Islands. Lying 100 miles off the south coast of England, but only 14 from the coast of France, Jersey is an island with a geography and history all of its own.
We have quite a lot of elements that make the Channel Islands really different. History is all around us, from the castles to the German bunkers.
We were invaded and occupied during the Second World War. It's the only part of the UK, I think, that was under German control.
We have a commercial port, we have a fishing industry, and we have a huge summertime leisure industry.
We're blessed with lovely beaches, surrounded by nice clean seas. It's a little bit of paradise in the Channel, I guess.
Like all island communities, Jersey has a very intimate and sometimes fraught relationship with the sea that surrounds it.
Got one of the largest tidal ranges in the world, 12 metres of rise or fall, and that can happen in 6 hours.
At low tide, the island's land mass is about 20% larger than it is at high tide, simply because the tide goes out so far and so much shoreline, coastline is exposed when it does so.
The tides will swirl around the island. They'll draw you away from the island. You could quite easily end up in France.
Mid-December, winter grey skies, rough rolling seas, force 7 winds and rising.
The pager went off that day. I knew that this had to be fairly serious. I looked at the pager, read St Catherine's, it was immediate launch. Immediate launch is imminent life at risk. The DLA told us it was a canoeist that had capsized and was in the water.
I arrived at the station, we met the casualty's friend who was canoeing with him at the time.
Started updating us on what had happened. Okay. Here we go.
The casualty is Alan, a canoeist who set off that morning with his stepfather Tim to take part in an extreme sport known as downwinding.
Downwinding is a sport where you use the power of the wind and any swell to push you along.
Using a specially designed canoe called an Outrigger, downwinders seek out the kind of weather conditions most people avoid in order to surf the waves at high speeds.
The trip we had planned when the incident happened, the wind strength was, I don't know, about 20 miles an hour, and there was a swell running. For us, the conditions were good. They weren't anywhere near the edge of our capabilities. Just before we got to Gorey Harbour, out the corner of my eye, I saw Alan get bounced by a wave. I saw he'd come off his craft and landed on the armour, cracking it. Got back onto his boat. I could see that the armour was flexing in the middle. With the armour broken and filling up with water, it just pulled him back over.
The Outrigger arm gives these slender canoes their stability. Without it, it's impossible to stay upright.
My initial thoughts then were, we've got a problem. I could see that he couldn't stay on the craft. If I'd taken him on board my craft, we could have both struggled. Well, I called to Alan, and he said, get the Coast Guard. I got the radio and tried to make a call, a mayday call. But I got no reception back. I heard nothing back. That's when I knew I had to go for help. I made the decision to go for the lifeboat station and get Alan rescued from there. I had to get to shore as quickly as I could to rescue him because too long in the water and he'd be getting hypothermic. So there was some urgency and it was a serious time.
But he'd done well to get to shore and raise the alarm. At that point, you know that it's a really potentially serious shout. Person in the water, a kayaker in the water. It was December, it wasn't warm, and the sea was really, really rough.
Because of the extreme differences between high and low tide, the St. Catherine's lifeboat and Atlantic 85 launches from a mobile trailer driven right into the sea, which the 40-mile-an-hour winds have now whipped up into 3-meter waves.
The responsibility for getting that boat away in a rough condition can be frightening. I have to be honest, I was shaking a little bit because I thought that this is going to be a tricky launch.
There was definitely an apprehension on my part as we went down the beach.
OK, we're ready to go when you want, Andy.
As you get down to the level of the waves, you start to realise how much bigger they are. I've never seen blue water coming over the front of the boat before we've left the trailer, not at the point where we're still sitting in the trailer and you've got a wave coming over in its entirety through the boat.
Andy gave a couple of shouts to hold on as the first couple of waves came by. Hold on! And then he gave the command for the boys to let go of the ropes.
Once I've given that signal to go, there's no turning back. We're going in. The bow came up quite considerably, and I was hoping that please stop coming up, please stop coming up. And we got to a fairly high angle.
Almost in the vertical. I was terrified that it might flip back into the trailer. I'd say yes, it was our most extreme launch. It was the roughest I've ever launched in.
The crew now have to try and find one man in the mountainous sea.
We proceeded to the last reported location at the back of Gorey Castle. The seas were, from peak to trough, were probably 2.5, 3 metres on the waves. So actually seeing anything is quite tricky because if you're at the bottom of a wave, you can't see anything other than the waves around you.
The casualty has now been in the water for over half an hour. With December sea temperatures in single figures, he's running a high risk of hypothermia.
If you were not holding on to something and able to keep your head above the water, I think quite quickly you would succumb, you'd lose energy and get tired and find yourself in a drowning situation.
The waves were just so big and so much white water that we really couldn't see much at all, and your chances of locating just their head above the water is very, very difficult.
The sea was very lively. The sea was probably more than likely it was angry, like a pit bull that didn't really want to let go of the thing it was holding on to.
And then when we got to the casualty's last known position and we hadn't spotted him, that's when you start to worry.
Alan was out there, he'd been in the water for over 40 minutes by this time, so I was very concerned for him. I think the sea was around about 8 or 9 degrees. Even in a wetsuit, with that length of time, hypothermia can creep in very, very quickly.
Jersey Coast Guard, is it possible to get someone with eyes at the end of Gory Fields?
The strong winds and currents, plus the time the casualty has now spent in the water, means there's a danger he's been swept out to sea, and a much larger search operation may be needed.
My hopes of finding him were diminishing when I started realising the search area now had started to grow dramatically. I had my finger just hovering over the transmit button, about to request the Channel Island air search plane be launched and the all-weather lifeboat be launched from St Helier, when we received a call from Jersey Coast Guard. Fire service believed they'd identified a target in the water about a mile due north of our position.
The crew speed to the new location, aware that in these frigid seas, the casualty is running out of time.
What's this? In the water.
But instead of the casualty, they find canoe wreckage.
I didn't know it was an outrigger canoe, and I didn't know what the situation was, but that looked like a bit of a canoe, and if that's the canoe, where's the rest of it?
We then assumed that the canoe had broken up.
I honestly thought there was a pretty good chance we'd be pulling a body out. It felt like that kind of day.
Jersey Coast Guard contact, we'll update you shortly. The casualties first will bring them aboard and we'll update you.
Finally, 19 minutes after launching, they spot the casualty. He's now been in the water for almost an hour.
We got onto the side of the boat, and myself and the helier grabbed hold of him and heaved him up.
It was really making sure that he was not hypothermic and just keeping an eye on him, really, making sure that his condition didn't change drastically.
He was shivering, he was breathing quite rapidly, but we made sure that we were talking to him. The main thing was just to get him out of the conditions and get him somewhere dry where we could warm him up, really.
Oh, it was the best seat I've ever had, sitting down on that boat. It was, I was pretty tired by then. It was just a lot of time by yourself, just trying to hold on to the craft and hoping that somebody will come. And all I wanted to do was just get out of the water. And yeah, as soon as I sat down and they wrapped me up, I was a lot happier.
So we made our way back down the coast to Gorey Harbour, where we got the casualty off, and he was met by a member of the Coast Guard and the fire service duty manager. I made sure he was all right.
Right, can we get you inside somewhere out of the wind, and then we'll just do a quick assessment on you?
As soon as we got off the boat, the shock set in. The lifeboat crew saved my life, really. They got out in conditions that a lot of people don't go out in. They'd done their job amazingly, and they saved a life.
save someone's life feels amazing. It's second to no other emotion. You know that you have done something selfless, and that counts for a huge amount.
It was one of those jobs that you feel that you made a difference. It was one of the ones, there was a lot of smiles at the station. There's always a buzz at the station when you feel that you've made a difference.
The lifeboat and crew saved Alan from a very, very serious situation. We try not to dwell on the what-ifs too much, but yeah, we know that it could have ended tragically.
This could have been a lot worse, definitely. If something had happened to Tim's boat as well, we probably both wouldn't have made it. If he couldn't get to the Coast Guard in time, if the run was longer and there was nowhere for him to get in earlier, yeah, it could definitely have been worse. I could have definitely died.
The volunteers of every lifeboat crew are drawn from all walks of life. And through the course of their extraordinary work, form incredibly tight bonds.
I trust my crew members with my life, and I do every time I go out. You need to know that they're going to be there for you and you're working together and properly as a team.
They've got your back, you've got their back.
Okay, go for it, guys.
And it's the understanding that you aren't working there for yourselves.
Come on, pull, come on.
You are there as a team.
3, 2, 1, lift.
The best part of the job is the camaraderie, the team. Without them, you couldn't do it yourself. Like, everything in the RNLI revolves around teamwork.
Out at sea, the only thing you can rely on is yourself, your crew and your boat. The best feeling in the world is doing a job properly, coming back in, opening the biscuit tin and cracking on the kettle, I'd say.
Of the 238 lifeboat stations across the UK and Ireland, perhaps no crew members are closer than 3 young men from St David's on the most westerly tip of Wales.
Will and Ben, my brothers, all 3 of us on the lifeboat, which is nice. It's just a family thing, I guess. My granddad was in there, my dad was on the RNLI. I've always wanted to be on the RNLI.
Dad was on the lifeboat for about 15, 16 years, so it was always there in our head. And then my brother Hal joined, and then my brother Will joined, and then I kind of felt a little bit left out, so I thought I'd join them as well.
Working with my brothers is hilarious. It's funny. Like at times, like we'll have an argument, but because we're brothers, we'll just laugh it off, and that's it.
I got a really great relationship with the Richardson brothers. I was Ben's best man last year, so obviously I'm as close to Ben as I am to anyone else in the world, basically. And Hal and Will are 2 great guys as well. I'm really close with them. They're a good laugh.
As well as manning the lifeboat together, Hal, Ben and Will also work together on the family farm and campsite overlooking White Sands Beach and run with an iron fist by Mum.
Right, what are you lot up to?
Oh, just tied in.
Oh, just tidy in.
Just tied in.
This actually has to be put on a tap, yeah?
Cannon Farm is the campsite that I work at. It's all a family-run business.
Okay.
Oh, can we have a cup of tea, please?
What?
Cup of tea, coffee?
Cup of tea.
Please.
Cheeky little.
It was passed on from my mum's mum down to her. It's been going for about 70 years now. My main duties are just making sure the site looks pretty, cutting the grass, trimming the hedges, sorting out anything that needs sorting out on the grounds, basically. It's a pretty spectacular view from the campsite. White Sands is one of the most popular beaches around here. In the summer, it can literally be packed with hundreds and hundreds of people. You can see Cantlady in the distance over the shore and St David's Head, and then looking round over the peninsula, you can see Ramsey Island.
It was like voted one of the prettiest coastlines in the world. We get the best sunset because it's just straight to the horizon of the sea.
The St David's Lifeboat Station covers an area roughly 12 miles in each direction along the coast and 30 miles out into the Irish Sea. They launch to around 30 shouts a year and can be called to anywhere in their area at any time. But on one particular day in early September, a very unusual shout comes to them.
So we were in the barn doing our usual like yearly tidy in the barn, and we could just hear this like popping noise, like a pop pop bum pop pop pop.
My brother Will noticed it at first. He actually heard it. He didn't see it. We all ran outside from the barn and we looked at it as it came around the corner. Then
I was just like, that does not look right. Like there's something wrong there.
It was just above the caravans, it looked like, which isn't very high.
There's a plane about to crash! And we all just watched this plane, like, pop, 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 just wobbling around, just going across the bay, getting real low, like going towards White Sands, and we were like, it's going down, like, that is going down. And then it disappeared behind the cliff.
I thought maybe he's just flying low and he's just going to go back up any second now. And he's a bit shocked at the time. It's a bit like, has it actually happened? And then before you know it, the bloopers go and... We got down the station. Jed was already in his kit because he was down there. So he said, get your kit on, we're going to go and assist with the plane crash.
White Sands Beach is just over a mile around the headland. With no new information about the plane, the crew pushed their D-class inshore lifeboat to its top speed of 25 knots.
Stay out of the rubber now. Pull the right side, yeah.
On the way over, there was obviously the concern that there was going to be someone seriously injured.
Lieutenant Coast Guard, this is severe RB, his name is RB,
Once you hear that a plane has gone down, you know that the likely outcome isn't a good one, it's not a positive one. Particularly a plane has gone down on White Sands Beach, such a popular area. Worst case scenario is he'd hit people on the beach. So yeah, that was what I was fearing the most.
As soon as we came around the corner where you could see everyone just like trying to see what was going on from the distance.
Looks like his landing gear hasn't come out.
And then we just seen the tail basically and these wings, so like just went as fast as we could over there.
If you could put a crew member ashore to assist the lifeguard.
Tell them that the plane is just on the waterline.
Yeah.
Being a busy beach, there was people crowded around it already.
Okay.
Lifeguards are looking after it.
Yeah, okay.
I spoke to the Coast Guards, they've got other assets coming down here now.
Incredibly, the only casualty of the crash is the pilot himself, who has suffered a few cuts and bruises and a banged head.
I knew by then that the pilot was safe and he was being looked after, so that was fine. There was no other casualties, it was just him on his own.
Oh, he's a bit...
Make sure they stay away, obviously it is.
Yeah.
Playing with hot fuel on board. Don't go too close yourself, Will.
So yeah, I guess the next point of call was to make sure this plane is safe. It's not going to catch a light, drift off, leak fuel everywhere. It was fortunate that there was a guy on the beach who was an ex-pilot.
Hello, Joe. Nice to meet you.
So he came up to me almost immediately and said, I can help. I can make sure that the engine's off, the fuel is isolated. He was good.
Fuel is off now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We turned the fuel off and all that kind of stuff. We didn't know if there was a small crack maybe and it was just ready to go, so we just had to get it out of the water basically as quickly as possible.
Although the tide was going out, obviously sooner or later the tide is going to come back in. I don't know how long it takes to move a plane.
Fortunately, the one Richardson brother not on the shout, Ben, is back at the family farm.
We waited up in the crew room for a little bit to see if we could hear what was going on. And as there was enough crew on shore, I went back to Pencarnon to have a look over so I could have a watch from the land, basically.
and the farm may have just the tool for the job.
Basically just a little tractor with an arm that can extend on the front and lift heavy things.
There we are then. So as soon as the bow's lifted, the wheels will work.
The front was buried in the sand pretty much without the front wheel, and it was still partially in the water, so it's quite soft sand on the edge of the water there. Really didn't want the telehandler sinking in.
All stop.
I was surprised at how good condition it was in. Like, as soon as we pulled it out and realised that the only thing that was actually broken on it was that front wheel, like, I was blown away.
We towed the plane pretty much the whole way down White Sands. I've never done anything like that before. First person to tow a plane down the beach with a telehandler. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Right, cheers. See you again soon. Yeah, lovely.
Oh, it could have been catastrophic. I know it sounds dramatic, but if it had happened a week earlier, it was August bank holiday. The beach would have been full of thousands of people, no exaggeration. The rather ironic twist is, to the day of the plane crash at White Sands, 13 years previously, the St. David's crew had been out looking for a plane which had crashed in the Irish Sea. So if I'm still working for the RNLI in 13 years' time, I'll probably take that day off, just in case.
A couple of 100 miles along the coast from St. David's is Hoylake, on the northwestern corner of the Wirral Peninsula.
Hoylake's my hometown. I was born and raised here. It used to be a fishing village, and it's got a very strong link with the sea.
We've got lovely beaches. We've got two very close cities to us, Chester and Liverpool. And the people in Hoylake are fantastic, very friendly.
Less friendly, however, are the infamous Sands of Dee, a vast and constantly shifting area of mudflats that appear at low tide.
The coastline is very sandy, all round from West Kirby round to Hoylake, all the way round to New Brighton. It's sand and mud. The mudflats are nasty. You cannot see them sometimes. You can be walking on sand one minute and you can be up to your knees, and at the next, it's that easy to be caught out.
If you do find yourself stuck and you have no way of alerting the authorities or getting help that way, worst case scenario for somebody stuck in the mud is to drown, and it's a very real possibility.
Watching over this treacherous stretch of coastline, Hoylake Lifeboat Station, founded in 1803, is one of the oldest in the UK. Because of the very particular nature of the patch they cover, Hoylake is home to an equally particular vehicle.
The hovercraft mainly is for people cut off by tide on sandbanks and people stuck in mud.
It's a completely different asset to anything else the RNLI has. Probably say it's closer to a plane than to a boat, especially when it's on the beach.
There are only 4 stations that operate hovercraft in the UK, making rescues possible in areas inaccessible to conventional lifeboats.
The hovercraft last year had 34 shouts, but the boat had 7 shouts.
A typical shout? There is no typical shout with a hovercraft. Whenever you go down when the page is gone, it's usually not what you think it is.
Mid-April, blue skies, low tide.
When I arrived at the station, I was appointed as the commander for the shout.
First thing we heard is there was 2 horses stuck in the mud, which was a first for ourselves. So, you know, there's a lot going through our heads about how to tackle that.
Then more information came through that there was human casualties there as well.
I'm pushing slowly.
So that made the situation even more serious. Were the humans in danger of being stuck under the horses? We did not know, so it was a very, very tense time.
My worst case scenario with people and animals stuck in the mud is the tide. If the tide's flooding, if we're coming up to high water and we get that call, time is critical.
As well as the risk to human life adding to the urgency of the shout, the crew also discover that the two riders are young girls aged just 14 and 11.
It was quite emotional, really, because we didn't know what to expect.
Things start coming into your mind, whether it's going to be any injuries. The other thing that went through my head is I've never dug a horse out the mud before, so this is going to be interesting.
It takes the crew 10 minutes to reach the shout location. As they draw closer, they spot something.
We knew that we only had one horse to deal with then.
As the pilot of the hovercraft, I had to be mindful of not getting too close to the casualties. With there being horses involved, I didn't want them to get spooked and scared.
To bring our mud board over. Get on mud board and we'll walk over there.
When we arrived there, Merseyside Fire and Rescue were already there, and some of the Coast Guards were already there.
We established that both riders were in fact okay, but once we saw the horse stuck in the mud, we realised that it wasn't going to be such a simple job.
Do you want to put the boards down? Yeah.
Though one horse and both riders are safe, the hovercraft crew still have a half-ton problem on their hands.
The horse was pretty stuck. He was stuck all the way to the tops of his legs. He was a lot deeper than what I envisioned on our way out there.
Hello, Tony. You all right? Okay. What's the horse called, Bobby?
I was quite surprised to see a horse in that area, to be honest, and I heard that the horse had bolted from the beach and the other horse had followed. I don't think she would have gone there by herself initially wanting to go there. The sand is always shifting, these mud flats move and gullies move, so it wasn't a very pleasant place to be.
Yeah, do you guys, you got the mud shoes on, do you go around and start digging that side? So I want to get her out all at the same time.
It was just a case of digging by hand at first, so we started to dig, and we dug and we dug and we dug as a whole team effort.
As well as hands and shovels, the crew use mud boards to spread their weight and stop themselves from getting stuck, and also a specialist tool called a mud lance.
All right, do you want to put the mud lance in? Yeah.
Early on in our efforts, we decided that we would resort to using the mud lance,
which is basically a fire hydrant filled with water with a big long probe that liquefies the mud to then hopefully free up a casualty's limbs.
Unfortunately, it wasn't as effective as we thought. The mud was just too thick. So we resorted back to plan A, which is to keep on digging.
I initially thought, oh, we'll get this horse out in a few minutes. We dug for about 45 minutes, I think it was.
Whoa. Watch yourselves.
And Bobby decided to jump out the mud by himself.
All right, mate.
And then he sunk again.
Step back legs, yeah? You can side move.
I was feeling pretty deflated once we got him free, and he instantly got stuck again, and we were back to square one.
An hour after launching, the crew are still no closer to freeing Bobby.
We talked with our fire colleagues, our Coast Guard colleagues, to come up with another plan, really. It was quite a multi-agency job, pooling our knowledge, our resources and our equipment together. We used some of the fire equipment, some strops and some lifts to try and help him out in the mud whilst we were digging.
Is that stuck?
Yeah.
That's soft just there, Matt, so just watch it.
Oh, that's solid here, isn't it?
Working in mud, it has its own challenges. sometimes feels like you're getting nowhere fast with it. The only way you can really sort of deal with getting someone out is to get right down with your belly down in it as well, alongside them, and start digging them out.
As time ticks on, the mud is now not their only problem.
At the beginning of the shout, the tide wasn't a concern of mine, so to speak. It was ebbing. I knew we had time on our side. But as the job progressed and as it became more complex, the issue of tide started to concern me.
I was feeling it, but no, I was going to carry on digging until I got that horse out. I would never give up. I would never give up saving a horse or a human being or anything. I would just keep on going.
At one point, the horse was breathing quite heavily. After discussion with Ian, we established that he was in quite a bit of distress and discomfort, and that did make things a little bit more critical.
Passing the water there, Matt. I'll see if I give him more water. Didn't want any before.
He was drinking water out of my hand a couple of times. And you could see with his breathing, it sort of eased, which was great.
No, it's good, lad. Get your hand in there. I feel that's gone under.
Ian talking to Bobby did help. I think we all found ourselves at one point talking to Bobby, so we were all rooting for him.
Then, after more than 3 hours digging,
Bobby was obviously quite tired, but he still had the energy in him that once he felt a bit of freedom, a bit of movement in his legs, that he was trying to stand up and try and free himself, which unfortunately hindered the process.
after only a few meters, Bobby gets stuck again. His instinct to bolt is landing him right back in trouble. Still, with almost 300 meters of mud between him and the shore, the chances of getting him to safety before the tide returns are falling fast.
After the horse got stuck the third time, it did cross my mind that we could be fighting a losing battle.
We had about an hour left before the tide would have been up to us, so it was starting to get a little bit worrying because 3.5, 4 hours of digging, and it was very, very stuck in the mud and going nowhere fast.
The worst case scenario for the horse would have been that he perished with the incoming tide.
The crew need to come up with yet another plan. As they can't get the horse to solid ground, they decide to bring solid ground to him instead.
It was decided we try and get mud boards underneath the front legs to try and give him a bit of firmer ground to help himself out.
That bit is horrible. So we might have to get to stand and get past.
Yeah, that's more of a path that way. Yeah.
Though the hovercraft only carries small mud boards designed for people, the Fire and Rescue Service has a much larger inflatable platform big enough for vehicles and hopefully a horse.
It was a very, very much a team effort.
So what's the plan with this stop? He's going to go. So if he goes, he goes. He's going. So what's it? He's going.
Using our equipment, our mud boards and our mud rescue techniques.
Come on, Bobby. Come on, Bobby. Come on, Bobby. Go on, Bobby.
So I try and get...
Yeah, try and pull him. Try and pull the strap.
But having the extra hands there from the Fire Brigade and the Coast Guard were definitely needed. Everybody played a part there.
He's on the strap. He's on the strap. Right. Drop the strap then. Drop the strap. Come on, Bobby. Come on, mate. Come on.
We had to get him out of that mud because he was really starting to dwindle, that horse. You know, he was tired. We were all tired.
He's on the mats at least anyway.
Right, is it worth put one round his bum?
It was a case of, right, we've all got to give it one big last push. So we had strops round his backside, round his legs and round his tail. And we all said, right, let's go. We all counted to 3 and we pulled.
Everyone happy? Yeah. Okay, on 3. Come on, Bobby, you have to help us now, mate. 1, 2, 3.
Come on, Bobby. Come on.
There were 7 of us physically pulling that horse out of the mud, and it needed every inch of our strength to get that horse out of that mud.
2, 3. Come on.
Hang on, whoa, stop.
1, 2, 3.
Come on, Bobby.
And we pulled and we shouted, come on, Bobby, get out.
There we go.
And he came out.
Bring the sled to the front of here.
and he seemed to know where to go to and stood on the board, and it was such a relief. You know, it was very satisfying, to say the least.
Well done, everyone. We'll take it from here. The Echo, we're here. We'll take it, all right, thanks.
I think we all had a deep breath and a drink of water because we were exhausted.
That's the horse, then.
It was the hardest thing I think I've ever done.
No, they're only baby carrots, but...
I was all right. I was a little bit tired, but I wasn't as tired as Bobby, I think.
His foot's in.
It was such a great sight to see. He just stepped off the skid mats by himself, no encouragements, and it was as if he knew he was home and safe.
I think all in it was about 4 hours. From us arriving on scene to the horse being clear of the mud, 4 hours of a lot of perseverance and hard work.
I was ecstatic. With being a horse lover, you know, it was one of the best rescues I've done, I think.
By the end of the shout, they were caked from head to toe in it and made a mess of my nice clean hovercraft.
We were covered. And then when we got back to station, the job had only just begun then as well. That was a long wash down.
We'd have never got the horse out had we not worked as a team, and that's not just the lifeboat crew, that's us working as a team with the Coast Guard and the fire service. After the shout, we did get a call to say they got it back to the paddocks where it was kept, and it was doing well.
No, I don't think I'll forget this one. It was, it was definitely the most trickiest mud rescue I've been involved with.
If somebody asked me, did I save that horse's life? Well, yes, I think I did. If that's just me, though, there was a team. I get quite emotional talking and stuff like that. When animals are involved, you know, I'm a big animal lover, especially horses, so it was a big relief.
Back down the coast at St David's, the three-generation tradition of having a Richardson on the crew looks set to continue.
We've got Finn, and then this one here is Little Leaf here. You're going to be very important, and you're going to go out and save lives here.
Yeah.
Say, Milford Haven Coast Guard. This is St David's RB. Yeah.
There has been a lifeboat station here in what is officially the smallest city in Britain since 1869, and for very good reason.
Most people who sail around the Welsh coast certainly would identify St David's as being probably the worst area around the Welsh coast. In our area, the conditions can change really quickly. There's nothing between us and the Atlantic, so we've got big waves coming in, big swells, and the coastline's really rocky, which really builds up those seas, breaks them and turns it quite nasty.
As soon as we get out of the station, we're in a very dangerous area.
There are literally thousands of shipwrecks along the St David's Peninsula, one of which was the second St David's lifeboat. Back in 1910, which was an old rowing sailing lifeboat, the Gem went out to rescue a sailing ketch, the Democrat, and got swept onto the reef, and the boat was lost along with 3 of the crew.
When we go past the reef, we give a thought to the crew members who lost their lives down there. You know, nowadays, it's very different. We're in the motorised lifeboat, big, powerful engines. Back in those days, it was a rowing boat, an open rowing boat, just to go out rowing in this kind of area when gale force winds like that. It was an immense thing to do, really. Those are proper heroes.
Early August, overcast, wind blowing in from the southwest. A distress signal comes in over the radio from a yacht in trouble.
We knew that he had some kind of steering problem, and it was 26 miles out.
When you hear that it's a yacht 25 miles offshore with steering difficulties, you instantly know it's going to be a long day. Like at the least you're looking at like a 10-hour tow.
Probably in the water within 12, 15 minutes from pages going off. Yeah, we didn't hang about.
The stricken yacht is halfway to Ireland. The crew launched their Tamar-class all-weather lifeboat with a range of 250 nautical miles and head straight out to open sea.
By the time we got a couple of miles offshore, we were looking at 3, maybe 4 metre waves.
Right, when you're out on deck, make sure you got your leads on. Yeah. She's going to be swinging around a bit and try and get close alongside her.
Punching into the sea all the way down. It's that chug down to a long shout. Can be where people go a bit green around the gills, you know.
Yeah, it was a very rough ride. It just got worse and worse. The further we got out, the worse and worse it got.
It was uncomfortable, you know, I didn't feel great.
Though it's bad enough for the crew in a 32-ton lifeboat, they know for the casualties on a yacht with no steering, it will be much worse. And they need to get to them as fast as wind and weather will allow.
I was sort of staring at the horizon, looking for that first little glimpse. The yacht's a pretty small target to find out there. You know, even ships look quite small out there, so until you're next door to them.
We've been given a lat and long position where to find them, and I think we were about 2 miles away then when we picked them up on radar and we knew we had them.
By the time they reach the casualty, the lifeboat crew have already been at sea for over an hour. But as well as the yacht, they also spot something else on the horizon.
They were in a shipping lane out there. They're in a lot of danger. 26 miles out to sea. There's no sign of land anywhere. You've got container ships moving back and forth all day long, all night long.
More than 30 ships a day pass through these lanes, including huge container ships and supertankers heading to and from the ports of Cardiff, Liverpool and Dublin.
Sometimes they can't stop. It takes them a couple of nautical miles for them to stop. Shipping lanes are not somewhere that you want to get stuck at all.
You could run something down at sea in a container ship, you wouldn't feel it. Those people could have been lost and nobody would have ever known. They would have just been missing at sea. They were in big, big trouble.
The yacht has now been in the shipping lanes for several hours and urgently needs towing to safety. But with a rough 4-metre swell tossing both boats around, it's not going to be easy.
My job was to get that tow transferred across to the casualty as quickly and as safely as we could.
It was a spring tide, so the currents that were coming through were very strong. And we knew throwing a tow line was going to be a tricky job.
Right, we'll go round him. Yeah. Start the side. We'll put across his bow with him.
I was going to pass the heaving line with the heavy tow rope attached to that across to him, and you've only got to look at the mast to see how much roll they've got going on, and the chances of actually landing in their hand is almost impossible.
Yeah, he doesn't seem too sure about being up front there, does he?
Okay.
The first attempt, managed to catch it, pulled in the line.
But he didn't seem to be able to secure it, and it got pulled out of his hand and fell over the side of the boat.
Lays how much weight on that rope in the water.
It's not easy, you can't particularly just stand up and pull the rope in.
We were quite concerned about him because the last thing we wanted was for him to end up in the water.
Tried a slightly different angle the second time and hoping that maybe if he got it across quickly or something it would work.
He was hanging on for grim death, just to stay on his boat, and then trying to pick up this line. It's like dragging a net, and the more rope ends up in the water, the heavier that rope becomes, and he just physically didn't have the strength. You can see him starting to tire.
There's an element of frustration that you haven't been able to get the rope across successfully, but in situations like that, you just prepare yourselves and give it another go. By this stage, we were getting quite worried that the crew member had become exhausted.
Wind's down, wind's down.
We'd been at it now for probably 40, 45 minutes, and we still hadn't managed to get a tow across to him. And we're thinking, you know, we need to come up with another plan. Really, the only other option that we could have done at that point was for one of our crew to go on board, and transferring at sea is not something we want to do unless we have to. Certainly out there, you know, somebody's in the water, somebody falls in, and it's an easy thing to do. That just changes the whole thing. You know, it becomes a nightmare then.
I remember looking up at Di, up on the helm. He was up on the bridge, and he looked down at me, and I kind of like split second, I knew he was going to ask me to jump across.
I do recall looking at Hal, and I think he already realised then that he'd kind of drawn the short straw, and he was going to be the one who was going.
Transferring at sea is one of the most dangerous procedures a crew member can undertake, particularly onto a smaller vessel in rolling and unpredictable seas.
The main concern's transferring, you don't break any bones. You know, if you've got one boat dropping away as another one's coming up and you jump, it could be like running into a car.
What I thought was going to be our chance, I started approaching, and then a couple of big waves came through.
There had to be probably, you know, at the extreme, there's got to be a 6-foot difference in height between the two boats. You know, we were up, they were down.
All the people behind me, the other crew, were saying, "You go when you want to go. Like, this is your choice. Like, don't listen to any of us." I just had to block everything out of my mind and just focus on the jump, really.
Oh yeah, Hal. Steady, steady.
It was amazing. It was like a real-life action hero, Superman, Spider-Man. He just jumped on, and his 2 feet landed on the deck of our boat.
He landed with both feet planted on the side of our boat and never, ever even gave the impression he was gonna fall over. It was the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
He was just suddenly standing there, and the boat still go up and down, and I think he said, "Hi, I'm Hal. I'm here to help."
And I think it was just a general sense of relief all around that we knew he was on board and safe.
We were very happy when Hal boarded our vessel. I just felt like we were in great hands. We knew that he was able to attach the tow line, which he did very easily.
It was the first time I'd been on a casualty boat with someone else, and I knew I was going to be with them for a long time, and I couldn't have been a better crew to jump on the boat with.
Hal told us that his grandfather had been a volunteer, that his father had been a volunteer, and that at age 18, he couldn't wait to become a volunteer. He was a delight to have on board.
My memories of Hal are just wonderful, wonderful young man.
With lumpy sea conditions and the dead weight of the yacht severely limiting their speed, the crews settle in for a steady 4-hour tow back to St. David's.
So I made up some sandwiches, and we dug out some chips and had a little lunch, the three of us.
It was a proper steak or ham and mustard sandwich with really nice spinach, and it was all brown loaf and all that kind of stuff. It was lovely. It was a really nice sandwich. Definitely won't forget that sandwich, for sure.
As you approach the coastline, you know, you can feel yourself. It's been a long job. It's been a very physical job. That sense of, you start to relax, think, oh, it's coming to an end now. Good, we can get them ashore, get them safely on the mooring. You know, job's done.
You guys all right?
Yeah, no, we're fine.
We'll pop you on the mooring now, and then we'll get you ashore and sort things out from there.
It's the first time I've ever called the Coast Guard in probably over 35 years of boating. I was so impressed with the way they just, you know, the whole team just seemed to just gel in coming to our rescue. It was wonderful, it really was.
Best of luck. Thank you. Cheers. Take care.
They were amazing. I can't say enough about that rescue crew. Sorry. We're very grateful. I don't know what would have happened if they had.
In Jersey, despite their ordeal, canoeing enthusiasts Alan and Tim remain as enthusiastic as ever about their sport.
I wouldn't say it's not my confidence. It happens. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens.
Just need to get back out there, really. The longer you leave it, gets in your head.
In fact, we've got a downwind race planned next month, haven't we, in France?
Yeah, in France, yeah.
We know we can rely on each other to bail each other out where we can. That's an important thing when you're out on the water, knowing that your other guy out there with you's got your back.
And Bobby the horse has also fully recovered from his muddy ordeal, as has his rider, 11-year-old Darla.
The lifeboat crew are amazing, because obviously you don't want to come every day, do you, and save a horse out of the sand. It was scary. I think it was just traumatic for me and Bobby, like, both together. But obviously not now. It's like this. He's just me, like, we both got the same personality, both have our tantrums, both cheeky when we want to be cheeky. I love him to bits.
Commercial fishing vessel carries a lot of fuel. It's basically a floating bomb.
Don't let me go.
She was quite reluctant to let go of the dog, but she wasn't going to hold on for much longer.
Hypothermic can kill you, and he was wet and exhausted from struggling.
Stay with us, stay with us.